Hey everybody, hope you're getting your evening started right, probably making some dinner or having some leftovers or maybe even going out to eat. But do you have a starch on that plate? I don't know, you might not, and that's okay if you don't, but if you do, or it might be the meal where you do today. And what do you have? Do you have some whole grains on there? Do you have some beans or some whole food starchy vegetables? Those are awesome powerhouses when you're going to select a starch for your meals. So whole grains, what are they and why are they promoted over refined grains? Okay, so whole grains have three parts to them. Understanding their anatomy kind of helps us understand why they're so important. So you've got three parts to them. You've got a part that has fiber and antioxidants and B vitamins. You've got one part that has starch, so that's your connection with carbs there, and a little bit of protein. And then you have one part that has some omega fats, some B vitamins, some phytochemicals as well. And so they all work really cool and synergistically together. I mean, just to offer the human health quite a bit of health promoting benefits. Now, when we refine those grains, and back in the day when refining first was developed and discovered, there was a rationale for it at the time. But what it does is it removes two of the three parts. So the only part that's left after you refine a grain is the starch and protein part. So people went about their ways and they were just consuming these refined grains, and they did get deficiency diseases, specifically involving B vitamins. And so everybody realized, oh my gosh, we really got to put these back, right? We've got to stop the deficiencies, absolutely. So they sprayed them back, they enriched them. So that's where the enrichment comes from. So when you see an ingredient list and it says enriched flour, it's refined and they've added back some B vitamins. But they can't add back those antioxidants and the fiber and the omega fats and all these things that really, again, work together to promote health in our species. So when we talk about whole grains, then you also hear a whole lot about wheat, and wheat is just one type of grain. We just hear a lot about it because it's grown quite a bit in the United States. So, but there's many other kinds. There's quinoa, amaranth, millet, barley, oats, brown rice, bulgur. So there's several, and so they all look a little bit different. They're different in sizes, shape, and color, and so all of those beautiful, awesome things that are in them might be higher in some and lower in others, but it doesn't matter. Eat a variety. All of it is good. All of it is awesome. Okay, now just because we say you should consume whole grains when you consume grains doesn't mean that, okay, this is healthy, then we can have an unlimited amount, and that's fine. And that's actually not the case. We still have to, it's a carbohydrate. We still have to make sure we're consuming appropriate amounts because we got to keep that carb intake in check. But look at that plate. A quarter of that plate should be should be what you give to carbohydrates if you're going to consume it. So just a quarter of that plate. Now, when you have a whole grain, there's also processed foods made from the whole grain. So bread, wheat bread specifically, is a really good example. Wheat bread, wheat pasta, and crackers. So you have whole wheat bread, and then you have white bread, which is still wheat bread. It's made from wheat, but it doesn't have the whole grain components to it. So just know that as you continue to remove a food from its natural state, you lose those beneficial compounds. So if you've got wheat here, you've got the whole wheat, and you have to process it to get whole wheat bread, still a processed food. Here's whole wheat bread, but you have to keep going until you get to the white bread. So whole wheat bread definitely delivers a lot more nutritive benefit if you're going to select a bread. But I will say this, the majority of the grains that we consume should be in their whole form. We should really limit the amount of processed foods and make sure that we're not over consuming those breads, tortillas, crackers, pastas. So, but grains in their whole form, in the small amount on the plate, a quarter of that plate is really where it's at. Lots of benefit here. It's kind of getting dark, so I'm getting, some flashlight from headlights. But anyway, as a credentialed nutrition professional, we have to make sure we are staying on top of the latest scientific evidence, because science is always changing. New research is always coming out, and that's a good thing. But So what I've done lately is I've really been looking into this. What is the current state of knowledge with whole grains? And you guys, this isn't the same. When we look at published research, this is not publications in magazines or newspapers or on blogs or online somewhere, some website or anything. This is, we use a platform where all health professionals and scientists can go to actually see what is the published literature say. When somebody gets published, they have their research. So just hear me out on this, because I think this is important for consumers to understand. If somebody does a study and they're looking at these two groups and they're feeding them XYZ and they want to know the results, that doesn't just get published like, hey, this researcher did this, look what they did. No, it has to be peer reviewed and published in a journal to even be taken a second look at, quite honestly. Peer reviewed means that research goes in front of all the peers that actually are experts in that field, and they are critiquing. Are you following what you're supposed to be following? Is this legitimate? Were your methods done well? Is this worth publishing as part of the current state of knowledge in this area? Big time, right? So then you've got peer-reviewed journal articles, so that's kind of where the foundation of current state of knowledge is. And then there's review articles of those, so they get like 20 different ones over the last 5-10 years, and they're looking, what are their findings? So these were looked at as really good research, and what are their findings? And then they're plugging all their data, all combined into one into a statistical analysis software, and saying, wow, now all of this combined, here's a big bottom line conclusive statement or perspective. And so that's real deal, you guys. And I was really excited when I was really researching this recently that there's a lot of review articles and these peer-reviewed journal articles published in 2018, so hot off the press. And guess what? It is still showing that whole grains are very protective. So check this out. So let me just give you an example. One of them looked at 20 different cohort studies that were published in peer-reviewed journals, right? So they're already top of the line research to pay attention to. No research is perfect, there's always limitations. But they were looking at the association of whole grain intake and all-cause mortality with cardiovascular or heart disease and cancers. Those are the two of the top leading deaths in the United States. And they found that when the higher the whole grain consumption, or when it was at the adequate amount, whole grains are consumed, mortality is lower. Another one was looking at basically, it was funny, the title of it is this: 50 years of confusion, fat, sugar, whole grains, and heart disease. Absolutely, it's been confusing over the last 50 years. A lot of consumers are confused, but I love it because it really, when you look at all that research, you see where things have changed and why people get confused. But basically saying again that whole grains are protective. Eating them in their whole form is best. A moderate amount, and with other plant-based whole foods, whole grains are great to include in your diet. So get adventurous, try some new ones out there, and before I am in pitch black darkness, I'm gonna have to go. So I hope this was helpful. You guys have a good Monday night.